Hello, Simone. I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we are going to be talking about how I brainwashed you or trained you or whatever word you want to use into the perfect wife drone that you are today. And some people
Yes,
say, oh,
husband.
I mean, you are honestly remarkably good. And trained is the right word here. Like, we worked for a long time.
Yeah,
Uh,
things weren't smooth always.
No, the things are very smooth. Now, I won't say it's not that they were not smooth. It's that you made more mistakes, but they were understandable mistakes given the context of the relationship at the time.
Well,
And
also
I
given societal norms about what normal women do in relationships, which,
do
as
and
we've covered
say,
in other
yeah.
episodes, is really toxic. So, actually, if you want to even have a slightly healthy relationship, training of your wife is mandatory just because the social contract she expects, the societal norms she's coming in with are by default toxic. They need to be removed. Like, you need to, like, this is like, she's coming in like ridden with lice, and so you should like spray her down, and like the
I'll give you an example of something like this because she might be saying this, and if you're a woman or something like that, you're like, "Oh my gosh, come on, this isn't true." And I'm like, if you are a woman of our generation, you went through an entire generation of media, whether it's The Simpsons or Family Guy or any of the sitcom shows, where the stereotype was that you have a fat, dumb husband,
Mhm.
and the wife's job was to sit there in the background and make snide remarks about his competence in
Mhm.
front of other people,
Yeah.
and then actually just go do what is actually right because he can't handle it on his own because he's just such a buffoon.
Yeah, it was always
Um,
just eye rolling and undermining your husband, and that was just so
and
normalized.
and and no, and so many women are like, I haven't been brainwashed into being, by the culture I'm in to being a psycho. And it's like, think about just think about, like, if you're a woman watching this, all of this that you grew up with. Do you not think that that influenced your norms about the way you might act in a relationship at all? Like,
Yeah, if you wanna believe that that didn't influence you, you're just delusional. I mean, we there is lots of evidence, there are plenty and we talked about this a little bit in our episode on propaganda, how TV shows and radio shows have shaped behavior, even going so far as to, for example, in Brazil, depress birth rates when you make an aspirational middle class family have lower numbers of children. Specifically in places where this
yeah.
one network soap opera is played, their fertility rates went down. It didn't play in every region of Brazil, and in the regions that were not exposed to this, birth rates didn't go down. So absolutely media influences us, and absolutely we need to be thoughtful about
But
deprogramming people if they've been exposed to this.
it's not just media. The other huge problem that we have is really bad psychological norms in terms of how you should act in a relationship.
Mhm.
E.g., like that you guys should have cooling off periods, or that you should build your relationship around compromise, or that,
Mhm.
like, all of these are like really hyper toxic in a relationship.
Yeah.
So,
So let's get
uh,
into it. Also, I want to give a little hat tip to Diana Fleischman. We just think she's the coolest. We were inspired to do this because she is currently finishing up a book called How to Train Your Boyfriend, and it's going to come out in 2026. We're so excited for it. So we're not talking about how to train men because she's going to do it way and like, oh my gosh, the psychological research she goes into with this. I
yeah,
mean,
you've
she's
you've
being
read
so
like the
thorough.
draft, right? So
I
you're
haven't
very
read I haven't I mean, I've only heard her about her processes so far. I haven't seen the draft, but she's talked about, like, a lot of the research she's been looking at, and, oh, like, she is
Yeah, it's gonna be
thorough.
much more scientific. This is me talking off the cuff
Yeah, we're talking
from my
anecdotally
personal
here. But we're
experience.
also I mean, like, I think that this is very practical stuff, and I think that if you are taking dating seriously, if you're embarking on a relationship or thinking about it, you really, really, really should be thinking about these things because you
Yeah.
only have so much time before norms in a relationship become solidified and unchangeable, or at
So,
least harder to change.
the first thing that happened in a relationship that I remember was, like, a major issue, not a major issue, but it was, like, the first time when I was like, "Oh, this is a norm that she has built that we need to deal with,"
Mhm.
was you were mad at me about something, and so you hung up while we were talking. This is Absolutely. If you normalize who you're dating ever hanging up in the middle of a conversation,
Or just
you
walking out of a room, just like ending a conversation because it got uncomfortable, shutting it down.
yes, you are normalizing what is functionally a form of abuse and what becomes a form of abuse. Because what that does is it allows either partner, whichever one wants to disengage, and keep in mind how bad it is to set this norm, whichever partner wants to disengage from a conversation can immediately control that conversation. Whichever
Yeah.
one is willing to stop talking, willing to stop trying to work this out, immediately has control of the situation.
Mhm.
That is an incredibly toxic norm to set.
And I think it's way more common than you would think. This is not necessarily gendered either. I mean, I hear about this happening a lot with men too. Like they just sort of stop talking or shut down and refuse to engage. So
Yeah, no,
it's
no,
important
and
for everyone.
I think that's the same. It's not like just walking out of the room or hanging up the phone. It's also if they're just like, turn to the TV, start ignoring you, watching whatever, or like just okay, I'm not engaging, I'm not
Well,
talking
also
anymore.
like a really common way of of doing this is like, oh, okay, well, let's just talk about this later. Like putting it off too, not being willing to have a conversation about it right away.
Yeah. So there's a few reasons this is bad. One is that it gives the person with less willingness to work out a area of disagreement more control,
Mhm.
which means that both parties are rewarded for being the partner who is being more disagreeable instead of being the partner who is more agreeable, which leads to more disagreement in the relationship overall. The second problem is it leads to the problem of, the common relationship rule of never go to sleep angry, right? You are extending the period that you and your partner are mad at each other and have not worked out whatever it is that you want to work out. If you work it out was in the initial conversation, and keep in mind that you should, as an adult, be emotionally mature enough to work something like this out was in the initial conversation, without it becoming emotionally escalated, or at least get to the point where you can de-emotionally escalate, be like, I'm feeling really emotional and I said X because of Y reason, and that's wrong. Like emotions are never a justification for action. That's the next thing that absolutely for you, I didn't need to train you this much in this area, but this is something that a lot of guys are going to need to train their wives out of is my emotional state justified my actions. So the worst case scenarios you'll hear of this is a woman will like go up and slap a guy and they'll be like, why did you do that? And she'll be like, well, in my dream you cheated on me. And it's like, that's your effing dream, lady. Like
It's terrifying.
you're being an absolute psycho. Imagine a guy just walked up and hit a girl for no reason or their wife for no reason. And it's like, why? She's like, why'd you do that? And he goes, it's Tuesday. Like, deal with it. You'd be like, wow, that guy is an absolute psychopath.
Yeah, seriously.
And yet women will say, well, I felt, and some guys will say this as well, which means that women need to train men out of this as well. I felt X reason, so I did Y. The fact that you felt X and then did Y is a personal failure on your fault. You're not the person who made you feel X. Emotion, you can say, well, because no, this is a big difference. So suppose you emotionally escalate something or something like that because a person is like spending in a specific way and you're like, look, I have asked you repeatedly to stop going out and buying expensive bags or something like that. We actually cannot afford this right now, and they didn't hear that, so then the person needed to emotionally or verbally escalate. That's very different. That's not them saying, that when you go out and buy bags, it makes me feel bad. It's them saying, we make X amount of money, you are spending Y amount of money, we are going to be effed if you continue to do this. You see, that's not an emotional argument. They're not saying you make me feel this way. And this comes downstream of psychological talk, and a lot of women are very
Mm.
infected by this framing, where they're like, well, my father used to do X to me when I was a kid, so I feel X way when like you do Y, or like my family always cared about. It's like, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You are responsible for who you are. Other
Mhm.
people aren't responsible for who you are. You can choose to not engage with that stuff. And just talking about this early. Like with a lot of this stuff, they can be like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you training them? Are you?" No, you're walking them through the logic of this stuff. And if you're like, well, the woman I'm dating just simply will not listen to logic. Like I can try to walk her through the logic of why it is bad to punish someone for how you feel over something that has nothing to do with them, right? Like
Mhm.
some past thing or some trauma that you've decided to internalize as part of your identity. Either you need to walk through with them why this is a bad idea, or you're in for a lot of hurt. Because
Yeah.
if you go into a long-term relationship with somebody like that you cannot sit down and logically talk through this stuff with, forever, for the rest of your life, that is going to be something you are dealing with. You're going to be dealing with somebody who, and this is your core partner, the core person you're working with, the person you're running your most important business venture with, which is running your kids, raising your kids. They're going to be able to say sometimes, well, I just disagree with you because the spirits told me, basically. Like that's what their emotions are, because they allow them to trump your reality. Like you can say, and I've seen families, women do this. The guy will be like, functionally, we can't afford this. Look at these numbers. And then the woman will say, well, when I was a child, we didn't have a lot of money. So I get really like triggered and feel really upset when you talk about us not being able to afford things. So you're attacking me when you say we can't afford things. And so you can't bring that up with me going forward if this relationship's going to. And then they go out and they keep spinning.
Yeah. And
And I've
then
seen this
you
over
can't
and over again
solve
in
the
relationships.
problem.
And that only gets worse because as soon as they realize they can do that within one domain, now anything can be a source of childhood trauma
Yeah,
for
and
them.
this isn't because they necessarily intentionally decide to exploit this. It can also just be subconsciously because they know it's the path of least resistance, something they go to as a default. I'll say that one thing I noticed in, in the training process in the earlier years of our relationship, not to say it ever ends necessarily, but there were issues that took us years to resolve, and there were issues that took us minutes to resolve. And they can be just as heavy. There's it's not about the weight of the actual issue. It's about whether or not it has already been encountered. So for every issue where you brought it up while it was happening, like while it was a problem, it was almost impossible. Like it wouldn't be solved in the moment. And it in many cases took years. So one example is
Yeah.
there was this
Yeah.
terrible thing where like every time Malcolm's family, if we were all together, would pile on him and they did this in like a pathological way. You know, he would say something and they'd be like, Malcolm, no, like you're being unreasonable. You need to stop, like whatever. I would side with them and throw Malcolm under the bus because my sort of default one, like the societal default is for girlfriends and wives to criticize their male partners. So I hadn't been raised with any sort of mental training that I shouldn't be doing this. And then beyond that, when I am in a social situation, all I'm trying to do is just it's not me. It's an LLM version of me designed to create maximum social equanimity and
Yes.
calmness. Like I'm trying to get the average happiness of as many people as possible to be high
To
and
make them
everything,
happy. Yeah. Yeah.
no
You see a bunch of
conflict.
people interacting and you're just like, my job is to please the crowd.
Yeah, so I'm going to throw Malcolm under the bus and like just it's automatic. And then, after each of those incidents, you would come to me just like why would you throw that really hurts, like why would you do that, that was horrible. And then I would get really defensive and then it became emotional, and it actually took years for us to resolve this because every time we tried to do it, it became a really emotional thing for me. And it was really hard for me to work through versus other things that are really major issues, like, what to do when one of us is dying, how we raise our children, and like really tough things around children and family. And what do you do, if an ailing parent wants to move in, all these things, how to manage finances, how to deal with debilitating illnesses. They can really ruin relationships and that all the time ruin relationships.
Mhm.
What is infidelity? All these things we talked about when we weren't going through them and resolved them in minutes. And so if you have a girlfriend or wife who's on the slightly more emotional side, or a boyfriend or husband, I would suggest trying to head off as many of these issues while they're abstract, Well, they're not happy.
No, yeah, and talking about what's expected of them, like, you're going to meet your family for the first time, I
Mhm.
expect you to be aligned with me, or
Yes.
more importantly, you're going to meet their family. This wasn't a problem for us, but I've seen this with other people where, like, the wife's family will attack the husband, and the wife will side with her family.
Mhm.
And this should basically never happen unless the husband is egregiously in the wrong.
But, like,
Um,
priming a partner for that is it also, like, that really helped initially too, is when you reminded me before we went into things, "By the way, you're probably gonna be tempted to side with everyone just to keep things calm and to not create conflict when they pile on. Please just remember to not do that because it really hurts me," and
yeah.
they're not being logical.
Yeah,
Um
no, they're not being logical when they're doing this. They're just it's also another one that's been a big ongoing issue, which you have recently gotten down from, is you think that you look good when publicly you act humble. You're like, well, I'm not really good enough to be here. I'm not really like, I don't really deserve this position that you guys have elected me for or given me. Then I'm like, Simone, like, I have to take her aside. I'm like, you are throwing everyone who supported you up until now under the bus. You are saying all of your supporters made a bad decision by putting you here. It's a bit like saying, I'm not really qualified for this job when the guy who recommended
who
you for
hired
the
you.
job is in the room.
Yeah, and you're making him you're throwing him under the bus. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not acting humble, you are humiliating everybody who has supported you.
So that's a really
Um,
good example again of how priming is really important. So there are two pro tips we've just shared to recap. One, discuss it and ideally write it down in a Google Doc or a relationship contract, which is what we did. It's like an active evolving Google Doc we have where we agree to things like what's an acceptable
yeah,
interior temperature, who pays for this, who pays for that, like how do we manage finances, how do we save money, all those things that can lead to breakups. Try to pre-negotiate them before they're an issue because as soon as it gets emotional and as soon as there's some kind of history or conflict about it, it is going to be 100 times harder to resolve. Second is if there's a recurring behavioral issue and the partner can abstractly be like, yeah, I really need to not do that, but they keep doing it, you need to prime them before the likely trigger event a lot. And then the
mhm.
more they get the practice, the less you're going to need to do it. But it's going to take a lot of repetition and don't give up. Because I think some people also just give up. They're like, yeah, I guess this is just never going to work.
No, it does work eventually, like,
Yeah.
all of the persistent things, and I will note it's also about knowing where women are likely going to need training, like, the thing about the thinking that acting with humility doesn't like, is always the right choice is something that many women, even traditionalist women, or I'd say even more maybe especially traditionalist women are taught from a very young age,
Yeah. I
is
actually remember thinking as a kid, like, I'm going to make sure that I never become, overly confident or conceited in some way. Like no matter if I am, I don't know what it is that made me decide this, but I have this memory as a kid of being like, no matter what, I'm going to understate myself
no matter yeah. Well, I know because women
be
are rewarded for this in our society.
for humility. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think that this is really, really toxic. And it's something that you're going to need to work with your wife on. Another one is the humility thing. Like a big one was that is you always thought that you were not particularly competent. Early in our relationship, this was a big thing. She was like, I'm not that special. I'm not that good. Right. And I had to work with you and set up and like entire training regimes because this is something where I had to logically help you with this. And so I'd be like, okay, Simone, you don't think you're that smart. You know, you're at Cambridge for graduate school. It's supposed to be one of the best graduate schools in the world. Every day, your job is to come to me and detail anyone you met during that day that you thought was smarter than you. And you rarely, I think like maybe once every few months, would find somebody who you thought was smarter than you. And I'm like, do you not see that like this indicates that you're probably on the smarter side of humanity? Like if this is what you are finding and you even view the world with this degree of like humility and self-doubt, right? Like the same was the airport test where she's like, I'm not that beautiful, right? And I'm like, well, okay, we're in an airport. Here are all the women around you. Point out any woman you think is more attractive than you, right? Like, and let's develop
Who's
a
not
baseline.
younger than me, because that
Who's
was
not younger than you? Who's
I was
not
like,
younger?
"Oh, her," and he's like, "Well, yeah, but she's like She's 18 years
And
old.
this was made even more clear for us when one day we went to a conference event, and everyone under 18 had to get X's on their hands because you don't have that at an airport, right? And so I was like, okay, now everyone look at everyone in this room who's more attractive than you. And she'd go like, well, there's that person and that person and that person, and it'd be like, how many of them don't have X's on their hands? And she'd be like, oh my god.
That was a huge thing when you really helped me realize that youth is beauty.
Sorry, it wasn't under 18, it was under 21.
Under 20, yeah, 'cause
But
it
it,
was
but it wasn't.
who could get alcohol and who couldn't. That was the
Yeah,
easy
it
thing.
wasn't even like use. Being under 21, because you're looking for people more attractive than you, somebody in your late 30s who
Mhm.
has 5 kids, you're pregnant with number 5 right now. You're looking around a room, and the only people you see as more attractive than you are under 21. That says a lot about where you are, right? Not the only people. There was like 1 or 2 people who were more attractive. But the point I'm making is that many women, even exceptional women, are trained to believe that it is moral to frame themselves as non-exceptional, which can lead to big mistakes in terms of career decisions,
Mhm.
in terms of decisions to apply to
And
programs.
these affect both partners. I think this is cool because I think a common issue that men have is their wives come to them and or girlfriends and complain about work and complain about this and that. And I think a lot of these complaints will just never happen if those women are given more confidence and assertiveness. But I think the problem is most men think that the best option is just to sort of in a reactionary way be like, "Oh, well, you should have just done this and that," when really you have to change their mindset. You can't go
Yeah,
in
no,
and fix
you
these
need to do
individual
this or
instances.
that. Like, it's not dog training, it's talking them through it, right? Like,
Mhm.
and if somebody can't understand logic, then that's a major problem, right? Like, that's going to affect every layer of your relationship. If you need to train your wife like a dog instead of with logic, that's going to be a major problem for you. You can be like, women just do not listen. Clearly, some do. Like, Simone isn't I've dated a lot of people before Simone, and a lot of them listen to logic.
Well, and I
And
think a lot of it's also though, it's a mixture of things. It's a mixture of being conditioned to do things and to not do things. And there are people who we've met like couples that started out really great, where they just seem so sweet and we were so excited for them. And then we see them years later and one is just like the husband's completely pussy whipped and he's not allowed to say anything without the wife who has somehow become like increasingly woke deranged,
well, yeah, because
stopping
if you
him from
get from
believing
one
anything.
area of like political, I can shut you down wherever we stop having logic, wherever that creeps. You
Yeah.
normalize that within any part of the relationship, and it creeps throughout the course of the relationship.
Well, yeah, and if you allow a partner repeatedly to just shut things down or to be like, "Oh, you can't say that. That's not okay." Or like, "If I feel emotionally challenged by this, you can't talk about it."
Then you
That
can
seems to be something
expand
that
what
happens a
emotionally
lot.
challenges you forever.
Yeah, then
Uh,
that's I don't know if that's logic or conditioning. I think that I think a lot of people condition their partners to lean in to their lack of logic because that's how they win. When, for example, a girlfriend or wife responds with an emotional reaction and then gets what she wants, boyfriends and husbands are literally training them to no
mhm.
longer respond to logic. So I would actually put this back on some men in some cases where they could have had a logic driven wife and then now they can complain like, "Oh, well, she only reacts emotionally now to things."
And
Maybe
it's like,
that's
yeah, have you
because
been
every
letting her
time
get her
she
way?
reacts emotionally, you reward her. You didn't push back enough and now she's been conditioned to react emotionally when she could have been rewarded for reacting logically and then she would have been a more logical person. I mean, I think people respond and people you can see this across cultures and societies, right? Like there are different ways that cultures will relate to debate and argument and I don't think it's totally genetic or ingrained. I think a lot of it has to do with, what are you rewarded for? Are you rewarded for emotional appeals? Like Eliezer Yudkowsky, we complain about the fact that he often turns to very emotional arguments because I think he's been rewarded over time by how they seem to shut people down who otherwise are very logical because he deals with a lot of really smart autists who kind of don't know how to respond to emotional appeals that don't have anything to do with logic. Like they're kind of they don't feel like it's a domain where they can fight back because they don't feel those
Mhm.
emotions and they can't play. It's a currency in which they can't deal. They don't have that currency to trade. And so I think he, for example, is an example of someone who's been trained to make emotional arguments. And women can be trained to do that too.
Yeah. Well, and I think another area here where people are trending, we talk about like the bad societal things, is compromise. No relationship should ever be built on compromise. Compromise is the most toxic thing that you can have in a relationship because compromise subconsciously rewards relationship division. By that, what I mean is if I want two and my wife wants five, and we have a relationship based on compromise, now both of us are subconsciously rewarded for exaggerating our positions.
Yeah, I should tell him I want 20 and he should tell me he wants 0, and then we'll end up with,
And then you
something.
begin to actually get closer when you misrepresent your position, even if you're doing it subconsciously due to like slight, motivations there. You move towards the position that you're representing, which means,
Mhm.
well, first I wanted two, but now I want one. And at first she wanted, five, and now she wants nine,
Yeah, and then
like
maybe we end up getting 5, which was the original number I wanted, but because I said I wanted 20, I'm gonna be
you feel
resentful.
like you
I'm gonna feel
lost
like I lost, yeah, because I
and you
didn't
get
get what I
angry.
asked
Yeah.
for. So yeah, you can't win in a compromise. It's horrible. It's
In the
horrible.
Pragmatist Guide to Relationships, we go over a bunch of ways that you can actually handle this. Disagreements, you can handle them by just giving all powers to one party. You can give all powers to one party by domain, like house decorations versus finance versus kids' names versus
Vacation
you can
planning, all these things.
you can use external mediators, and you'll often end up with much more favorable positions to what you want when you give the final decision making to your opposite partner,
Mhm.
i.e., generally the decisions are going to lead closer to what the person who doesn't have final say wants, because the person with final say has a responsibility to really think through what the other person is saying or damage their relationship.
Yeah, and I think that's another thing. So Malcolm, in the end, for example, has final say on most of the things in our relationship. And when he makes these calls, they're ultimately more charitable toward me than toward his preference. Like, let's say he wants 0 and I want 5. He's more likely to err in favor of 3
Yeah.
than in favor of what he would want, like a much lower number, because he knows that if he abuses his power consistently, the relationship is just going to end. And that's the
Mhm.
other thing about just more broadly relationship contracts and agreements and stuff. In terms of what not to do with training, ultimatums are kind of non-viable. I think a lot of
Yeah.
people, when they think about relationship contracts, they think that the violation penalty is, and then I will leave you. Like, if you
Yes,
cheat on
which it
me,
should
then I
never
will
be.
leave you. It never should be, because you absolutely then have to leave the partner if they do the thing, and you might not actually want to do that. So while we have a very detailed relationship contract, there are some exceptions that are just kind of fun.
This
Like,
this leads to a lot of cheating in relationships where somebody says, "If you cheat, I will leave you," and then the person cheats and they don't leave them, and then the person's like, "Oh, so there's no problem." Like,
yeah. So
yeah,
this is
okay,
functionally
I
not
say I
actually.
won't do it again, but
Yeah.
like, if you're like, "No," you like this goes against like the spirit of our relationship and will lead to X, Y, and Z problem. Now they won't do it, right? Like,
Mhm.
this will make me sad. This will lead me to eventually leave you if you do this. Was like cumulative things. That's very different than like do this, then why, but I don't actually do why.
Yeah. And so in our relationship contract, literally what's written is the most common penalty is, this will make me feel bad if you do this.
Yeah.
I'll be sad. Because it's understood that if over time you disappoint a partner enough, the relationship is over. This isn't something that needs to be, it is implicitly understood that if over time you disappoint your partner enough, you're gonna screw up. But making it this black and white, cross this line, I have to, end this relationship
Mhm.
immediately, you are setting yourself up for rampant abuse. And also this feeling that, oh, actually, I can get away with it, even more so than you'll hurt my feelings. So let's say, okay, you cheat on me, it really hurts my feelings. Okay, yeah, I mean, I understand that. I'll take that very seriously. If instead it's, you cheat on me, I'll leave you, and then you cheat on that person and they don't leave you, I don't know, you kind of feel like you've been lied to. You almost feel like, okay, great. So it is, I haven't done anything wrong. Like, clearly they didn't mean what they said.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a really, really big one.
And I think that if people are like, well, early in a relationship, how do we establish a relationship like this, right? It all starts by asking the person what they want from life.
Hmm.
And then being like, okay, does that align with what I want from life or the world or more broadly, right? Because then your relationship is based on your logical desires, right? Like long-term desires instead of, or moral framing, instead of like short term. If you marry someone because you feel an attraction to them, you can't do this, right? Like, because logic isn't the basis of your relationship. Love is the basis of your relationship. Alignment isn't the basis of your relationship. Love is. And so then they can always trump anything with, well, this makes me feel X or feel Y. And you're like, well, feelings isn't the underlying basis of reality. And they're like, but isn't that why we got married? Like, isn't that why we're together? Because of the feelings that you give me or gave me, which is really, really dangerous because the feelings that you give somebody else are going to change over time. So if they married you because of how you made them feel, you're not going to make them feel that way in 10 years or after you have 5 kids or whatever, right? Like, it should be based on an logical alignment. And so this is an early thing in a relationship that's really important to push through.
Yeah, totally agreed.
Anyway, anything else I should go over here, Simone? I mean, obviously, I
Hmm.
whip you when you make mistakes.
Oh, yeah, of course. I think
I
another
joke my
another
don't
really
your wife, unless it's like a sexual thing that you're into, then
yeah, then go for
have
it.
fun.
The biggest aspect of your training wasn't actually reactionary and wasn't even the conversations that we had hashing out basically the terms of our relationship contract. It was your transparency from the very beginning that you were so explicit about what your plans, values, and expectations were
Mm,
that so much of it was just already implicit. There was no work you had to do because it was clear to me and to anyone else who dated you what you were about, what you would tolerate, and what you would not tolerate. And that I think is a
yeah, my goal is X and Y. This is why I'm dating you. My goal
mhm.
is marriage, but all of that is in service of X and Y.
Well, yeah, and you're also very transparent about what you like, what you don't like. Like if I make a meal and I don't hit the mark, you're very explicit about it. Like I can trust you to say things even when you know that you'll hurt my feelings. And that also ultimately trains anyone who's in your life to
Mhm.
one know that they can trust you, but two also really know what your standards are and when they're disappointed. I think that people train bad behaviors in their partners by not being transparent with them, by not sharing their expectations, and by not being honest with them because then there's just not that there's so much guesswork, and when people operate on different social contracts, you're going to end up with disappointment and resentment
Absolutely.
and all sorts of problems. So, I think that's another really big one that is super underrated.
I love you so much, Simone. You are a great wife. I don't actually love you, by the way. We'll do another episode where I'm like, I think love is a scam. And I mean this as somebody who is in like the literal best position to feel this emotion of love. Like, I really admire my partner. I like spending time with her. I feel really anxious when we're apart from each other. And it's the same as my kids, right? Like, I think they're awesome people. I don't like being apart from them. I have an aligned value system with them. I want them to do great things with you. I find you arousing and everything, right? But all of the emotions that I feel about you can be given some other easily knowable emotional name, like admiration or kinship or friendship or lust or any of these words, right? And I think that there isn't some distinct love emotion as other people. I really think that it evolved as a myth to be able to talk about people who either you wanted to possess or have lust after or build a life with in a way that didn't say one of those things, right? Like they don't want to write poetry about how they lust after somebody, so they use the term love, right? Or how they want to possess somebody or how they want to spend their life with somebody. But those are very easy emotions to understand that are different from love. Like logically wanting to spend your life with somebody and not liking being apart from them because you have a strong emotional attachment for them is not the same as whatever we have mythologized as love. We've already aired that episode, so you can check it out if you want. And we're likely going to dig into this topic a bit more because I think it's really fascinating and could be at the heart of where modern progressivism came from, which was covering up what was like lustful or previously shameful emotions with a veil that they are now beyond reproach, which allowed people to build their entire lives around seeking out emotional states because they could label this bundle of emotional states love, which historically you didn't do. You lived for duty or for your children or for your nation. And I'd also note here that in saying that love isn't a real emotional set, I'm not alone in saying this. You know, the ancient Greeks didn't have a word for what we call romantic love. We go more into this in the episode. But even, you know, thinkers like C.S. Lewis said, quote, "Love is not an affectionate feeling, but a steady wish for the loved person's ultimate good as far as it can be obtained." And in saying that, what he's saying is love is a choice to want something for a person rather than an emotional state within yourself. We talked about how gross it is when like Lex Freeman is like, well, but what about love? And it's like, bro, like love probably doesn't meaningfully exist. And this is one of those areas where I'll just come out there where I'm like, I don't think consciousness meaningfully exists. I don't think love meaningfully exists. I think it exists even less.
And this is also a policy that you've held for a really long time because literally in our marriage vows, we're like, I don't promise to love you. I promise to constantly help you become the person you want to be and improve you, but I don't
Yeah.
promise to love you.
I was like, I can't control my emotional state. Like if this love emotion does exist, like I can't promise that I'm gonna be captured by it at a later date. And so yeah, but I say it now because I think a lot of people are sort of scared to kick down this illusion and be like, hey, this is not a distinct emotion that exists. Because everyone will be like, oh, you don't really care about your partner. You're not really aligned with your partner. You don't really find your partner attractive. You don't really, and I think that anybody who has spent a long time watching us knows that like that's obviously not the case. Like we are stupidly aligned and very much back to back against the world in terms of like
Oh,
media and
most
everything.
people when we discuss with them the idea of them working together, they're like, "Oh, I could never do that."
Yeah,
Like,
I could never do a company with my wife and
okay, and
spend
you
all
say that
day
you
with her
love
every
them.
day.
What is this? You couldn't tolerate working with them every day? Like, sometimes, man, people who say that they really care about love,
Yeah, they're like, "Ugh,
I don't know,
love," and
man.
it's like, well, okay, but work with your wife. Oh, I don't want to be around her
God
that
forbid you
much.
spend all day
I
every
me and you
day.
are like, we will do anything to be together at all times. But
Yeah.
it's not driven by love. It's driven by the fact that I've worked with people other than my wife, and I know she's the only one I can really rely on to be, you know, fully dedicated and efficient. Whereas most people are kind of, you know,
Well,
lazy
and in an
bumheads.
ideal relationship, you're not training someone to be your paid or unpaid courtesan whose only purpose is to make you feel good and entertain you
Yeah.
and be your sexy person. It is what marriage for the most part has been is an arrangement that allows people to live functional lives together. So,
And this is something I see so often from guys is you know they're like, oh, I want it like a hot, you know, whatever wife, and I'm like, you're asking for a courtesan, like you want some sort of like dancer or something like that, and then you hope that she's smart on the side, like
yeah, well, and also then you're surprised when somehow like they're not aligned with you. The best training really is for both partners to have the same objective function and to understand that they're more likely to achieve it, like
Mhm.
literally because it's true, one would hope, by working together. That
Yes,
they are better together than on their own. And then suddenly, and this is how it has been for us with most things in our life, every conflict is more we want the same thing, we want the same outcome, and we just happen to have different data sets.
yeah.
So the conflict is over
You can
that.
build it into a hypothesis, like, okay, you think Y, I think X. Let's test this.
Right, like we both want healthy, flourishing children, and we have really picky eaters that are, in some cases, not like not in the right weight range for their age, and we're both really worried about them.
Yeah,
And
so
our
we're like,
conflict is he and I have consumed very different information about metabolic health and nutrition.
But
And
what's great about having neutral conflict breakers today is you have AI.
yeah.
Like you used to need to go to a priest or something, and now you can be like, okay, I think X, she thinks Y,
Uh-huh.
who's more right?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually studies have shown that when couples reframe conflicts they're going through using language about each of them in the what, second person? You know, like you and I would be like, well, okay, so Malcolm and Simone are having a disagreement over this. What would we advise them to do? When they take the first person out of it, they're far more likely to, as a disassociated party, even if they're only acting as one, behave more logically. So even the process of just writing in your conflict to an AI in that third person of just like, well, Simone and Malcolm had this disagreement. What would you advise? You're even priming the participants in the argument to start
Mhm.
thinking about it in what has been shown to be a more productive fashion. So
Yeah.
I love that. I love that way of doing it.
By the way, here's a fun stat for you. We are less than 1,500 subscribers from 50,000.
No way. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. That's so cool.
We
Ah,
just went by 40,000, I feel
if
like, because I remember
you're
when we
not
went
a
up
subscriber, you should, as our son Octavian puts it, life and describe,
Life and Describe. It
please.
would help us a lot.
Yeah. Yeah. We hope to provide
Not as
useful
much as
content
not as much as Apple reviews. Apple podcast reviews are the most helpful.
because they're the most hard. You have to have an iPhone.
Obviously, Patreon's really appreciated as well, but
Oh my gosh, yeah, and I'm super excited to do more premium stuff for Patreon, so,
if we
yeah.
keep growing at the rate we've grown in the past months, I mean, maybe it's just because 'cause we've done a bunch of, like, juicy misogynistic stuff or something. If we keep growing at this rate, we won't have financial problems soon, 'cause right now we don't have jobs, so that'd be cool. We could do YouTube full time.
Yeah. I'm wondering actually though, would you give different wife training tips for the men who really are just like, "Yeah, I don't care, I want a passport wife. I want a Brazilian model. I want a
I
like
think
a
they're
wife."
making a mistake.
Is because I don't like my concern about training them is that because your incentives are misaligned, like you're there for the youth and beauty and for someone maybe to raise your kids or like be sexy and
Well,
pretty at
here's the
home.
thing, if you want a passport wife, then maybe you're even in a better position to find a wife you can be logical with. Like, okay, you're
Yeah, but then like isn't it better as a temporary arrangement because you want them for their youth and beauty and they want you for your money. So shouldn't you just do it on year-long contracts?
no, I still think that you can use the play that you get because you have a differential power position if you're getting a passport wife to say, hey, we're going to do things logically to optimize for this outcome, not to optimize for my happiness, but for this outcome.
Okay. What would the outcome be?
Well, whatever they work together for that outcome to be, but
But no, because the women want a better life and
no,
money
no,
and
no, 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 no. The
security.
women are okay with saying, I'm signing up with you so that we can both achieve Y or Z together. The
No,
pe
because they're really in it for the money and the security and maybe a more glamorous, comfortable
Right, and if
life.
it's a woman with a man, think about this, Simone. Men want career-oriented outcomes, right? Like, the man is the one providing for the woman. So if the
Okay.
man says, "My goal, right, is achieving X, and X is a career-oriented outcome," it is also the woman's goal for him to achieve X because her status as a passport wife is tied to his status as a passport man.
Ah, okay, this is actually sort of what I expect to happen as AI hits really hard because we're gonna see disproportionately, I think, men performing better because it is the more entrepreneurial, risk-taking
Yeah.
people that are going to be able to make money in a post-AI economy, meaning that I think more women will actually turn to men as kind of careers, like, I will be a professional wife, mother, girlfriend, and I do think that we're gonna see almost kind of a return to the corporate family where, you know, back in the day, the butcher would work with his wife and the butcher would be out slaughtering the pigs and processing the meat and the wife
Well,
would be
but
up
the thing
front selling and managing the finances and doing the
is what
books.
this means is you're not looking for a wife, you're looking for, like, a secretary or support that does wife things as well.
Yeah, that's also sexy. A
Y
sexy secretary.
I don't think sexy is important. I think
Well, I'm just
managing
the reason
kids is important.
I'm
I'd
asking
say
about
a
this
a
no,
nanny
no, the problem is a significant portion of our audience only wants the Brazilian, Ukrainian models. They want
And
the
they should get over that, right? Like, that's
they're
how they're
not
gonna
gonna they're
ruin their
clearly
lives.
not capable of getting over it. Chime in the comments if you've changed your mind on this, but we're gonna get no one chiming in who's like, "Yeah, I came to my senses and I've decided that I'm going to marry a."
I don't need to worry about them. They're not part of humanity's genetic future. These people, no, I'm honest. These people who take hot passport wives never breed above our population rate from what I've seen, or almost never.
Because they may promise to have a larger family, but the vast majority of
But they
them
don't. They get here, they have 1 kid, the woman does, and now she's
or
like, "Now I've
2.
locked you down. Now you can't leave me. Now I get half of what you have
Yeah.
if you ever wanna leave me," right? Like, why would I continue, right? Like, you effed yourself. You played yourself, okay? You can marry a woman who's from your own cultural group and like you and has a aligned value system with you, or a woman who is feigning that.
Hmm. Okay. I'm sorry, that's a big segment of our audience, so
But it's just I've seen it over and over and over again. It's a very easy play. Like, think logically from the perspective of your average woman in a developing country who's trying to get a passport bro to marry you. What
yeah.
you say is whatever they want to hear until you pumped out 1 kid, well under repopulation rate, and now they can't leave you as easily.
Yeah, this has happened with a couple male passport bro influencers who for a while had these channels about their hot wives and how they were just killing it. And then progressive YouTubers love to cover them because then
Yeah.
everything falls apart. They
They
love
have 1 kid and everything falls
they
apart.
love talking about how like their wives have left them and now they're, living in their own filth of the, the fallout from the divorce, dealing with all that. So not fun. Not
Not
fun.
fun.
Yeah,
Anyway,
okay.
love you to death, Simone.
I'll leave you
Excited for
to it.
the Mapu Popu Popu
Mapo
Dopu.
tofu, and you lucked out. My dad requested white rice. My dad's visiting with his girlfriend,
Good.
so
He has good
yeah.
taste. Were you hoping they didn't?
I mean, white rice has a lower glycemic index if you refrigerate it overnight first, so that's why I typically cook yours ahead of time. This is just gonna be, straight up. That's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Again, you and
Is
I
it
have consumed very different information on metabolic health. People keep saying, "Oh, do a health episode. Talk about your health regimen." Someone just today on X was like, "Oh, maybe you should do an episode on the effects of sugar because I've just discovered how bad it is and how much it affected my childhood moods, and now I've gone off it." I'm like, "Dude, you don't want to hear Malcolm talk about nutrition."
no, my diet is called the radical diet, okay? You are as radical as the foods you eat.
And by
I
radical, he means like 1990s Kool-Aid. Oh yeah,
I
radical.
mean, if it doesn't turn you into, like, mercury
If
so
you're
that you
not
can flow
bleeding
around
red
like you're
dye
in a Capri
40,
Sun
you're doing
commercial.
something wrong. Yeah.
You need okay, this is what children need. They need fruit roll-ups, they need Gushers, they need Dunkaroos, they need Capri Sun, they need Squeeze-Its, which don't exist anymore, so now what would these be, like, Kool-Aid, like Pop Tops?
Feastables.
You need
Erased my country too, the most out of control radical place the world had ever seen. Slam Zone!
Your country was called Slam
The
Zone?
United Republic of Slam Zone in title totality.
Ah,
The only thing that still makes sense to me is a nice ice cold Capri Sun.
I'm not really in the mood for a Capri
Here
Sun.
you go, drink up. Sorry, friend, but you know what I do know?
What's
I know
that?
another ice cold Capri Sun would really hit the spot.
I don't want another one. I don't want the first one.
You gotta hydrate yourself. Drink up.
oh no, oh my gosh, all of this stuff. The more industrial it is, the more radical it is. I learned this from commercials. And if you eat enough of it, like a Capri Sun commercial, eventually you will turn into a horrifying metallic blob that can fly
Oh,
around
yeah.
and do cool stuff, right?
Oh,
Like
I forgot about this.
you drink
Yes.
your Kool-Aid and the Kool-Aid man will burst into your home and debris will get in his
Yeah, it was like sympathetic magic false advertising, but it worked. Like they understood that there's this inherent subconscious human belief in sympathetic magic, and they're like, okay, so if we serve the Capri Sun in a in a foil package, the children will believe that if they drink from the foil package, they will become metallic foil. So
You
let's
thought-
advertise.
Coming at you, Capri Sun by the pitcher. So whenever you want, you can make as much as you want. All natural Capri Sun drink mix.
Become a swan if you ate a swan birthday cake, Simone.
I did. No, I 100% believed in sympathetic magic. Yeah, at my preschool, you got to choose what kind of beautiful cake our Mormon preschool teacher would serve. May she rest in peace. She was one of the most wonderful women in the world. And I would always ask for a swan because I thought it would turn me into a swan. I just want to be graceful. I'm not graceful. Oh,
You're very graceful, Simone.
no, man, I'm the ugly duckling. I never made it to my swan face.
Are you
No,
dun
this is
dun
my
dun
stomach.
dun 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 dun?
You've seen me waddle around the house, even when I'm not pregnant. It's bad.
You are an exceptionally graceful woman,
You're
Simone.
so sweet to me.
But no, this is all true. And everybody thinks, oh, I want to live I don't want to live forever. I don't want my kids to live forever. That's not the point, right? Like,
Okay, so
die
this
when
is
you're
the truth of
60,
it.
whatever. Like, you're not going to
Your health regimen is burn bright and die young.
Yes, the point is to be the guy from Blade Runner. The flame that burns twice as bright burns half as long. Your point isn't living forever. It's to have a bunch of kids and live till you're 60, because after you're 40, basically your life is only about helping your kids at that point, right? Like, you're not going to have that many more kids after that point, right?
So guys, this is why you haven't had the health advice episode.
This is why you haven't had the health, because my health advice is stop worrying about dying. Don't be such a pussy, man. Okay?
Yeah, man.
I don't mind. No, seriously, like,
It's a good day to die when you know the reason why.
It doesn't matter.
True.
As long as I've set my kids up, and people can be like, oh, well, that fruit roll-up is going to kill you at a young, not at that young an age. I'll be fine by the time my kids are set up, okay?
I hope so. I'm going to secretly make you healthy and keep you alive. That's the thing, right? Is I will feed you white rice, but normally I'm able to impart interventions that reduce the glycemic load, or I throw in additional things to add a health factor. I force you to take vitamins and supplements. I force you to get the DEXA scan you just had yesterday, to get biannual MRIs to check for cancer.
I'm like this person who's trying to like murder themselves.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, it's like with our kids, like they're just walking around like trying to kill themselves, and I'm like just quietly like taking away the knife, taking away.
Well, now that you make a lot of my meals, you're in charge of my health as well, right? Like, even when I eat very little that you don't make anymore.
It's true, yeah. So in the end, you're ending up eating like whole foods, minimally processed, and you don't even know it. You think you're on the radical diet because you have like 2 fruit roll-ups that you steal from the kids on a weekend. But in the end,
that's the truth of it, though. I have like 2 fruit roll-ups. That's my actual radical load.
Yeah.
So my radical load is low, which is sad.
Oh no, you're not dying fast enough. What are we going to do?
We need to get some gushers. But I can't because they're too expensive. You're
Are
lucky
those the ones that look like
frugal.
crystals, though? Do those look like crystals?
Yeah, the little crystal-looking ones.
If we Titan would lose it. You know how she is about mine crystals.
Mine crystals.
The octopus, the Tommyknockers are gonna take my.
We told her there's Tommyknockers in local mines, and all my kids are always talking about the Tommyknockers. We don't want them to go in the mines, So, and the witch lives in the swamp, and the Tommyknockers live in the mines, and I told them that the Tommyknockers, because the mines are flooded, have tentacles and look kind of like octopus.
Yeah. So now she's just confused. She's talking about tent ankles and Tommyknockers, octopuses stealing her crystal. She's not afraid of the Tommyknockers because she knows that she will win every fight she enters, and she does. Well, no, Torsten's the finisher. After much torment, he just ends the fights.
Back her down with his iPad.
Yeah, but
Not
she
a
always
real iPad,
initiates.
of course. I never pay for that for my kids. It's like a tablet that's like $80, but yeah.
Well, that's what he gets in trouble for. He doesn't get in trouble for smacking her. He gets in trouble for potentially breaking a tablet.
All right, I'll let you go down, get started. I'm sorry I've kept you this long. You are a beautiful woman. And it's important to remember that even when you're training your wife, that like a dog, you can tend to give her little treats. Because if you don't, That's such a stupid face. You look like a Tim Burton character. Why did I marry you?
A monster. A monster. Oh god. Yeah, little treats. Well, you get me popcorn, which is better
That's what
than
I do.
little.
Yeah, I try to anticipate what you want around the house. But yeah, have a great day, guys. Remember, it's about chaining your wife to a radiator and whipping her until she submits. That's
And you're a cuck if you are a passport bro, apparently. So,
most passport bros end up cucks.
and if you want a hot wife, apparently. That's
It's hard, but the thing is, you started as like a progressive, and the reason you switched is because we talked through our values,
Mhm.
we talked through what we wanted to achieve,
But
and
also,
we
like,
stayed-
yeah, you did the thing where you, just like any good investor, you buy an undervalued product that you know you can fix up. That's what private equity is all about. That
yeah,
is
you
what
were a
good stock
garbage
investing is
product
all
when I
about.
found you.
Yeah, I wasn't. I mean, I looked older then than I do now. Weirdly, and at least I think so. From like my
I
photos
think
from
so
when I was
too.
in my
Yeah,
20s.
and you also had only a GW degree and a pretty shitty job.
Yeah. So like, yeah. I mean, I hear what you're saying. Like when you, I was gonna say buy, when you buy a mail order bride, essentially you are buying someone at their peak value. Like it's like the really stupid private equity buyers or like people who buy flipped houses and like everything is at its maximum, like barely held together with tape. Like, you
Yeah,
do an
no, I
intersection
agree.
and like, the pipes aren't even connected. Everything looks really good and everything goes downhill from there. Whereas what Malcolm bought was like an old house that was a wreck and he invested a lot in fixing it up, but now the value is paying dividends. Like it's a rental property that then you can rent out and not that you're
By the way, get down and make me food.
okay. Bye, Malcolm.
I'm joking. I love you, by the
Love
way.
you. I love
She
you. I'm
only
gonna go
started
make food
making me
now.
food recently, like this year, by the way, just so people know. Before
Because
that, I was
Malcolm's actually a better cook than I am, but I
not with every type of cooking. I'm better with spices, and you're better with cooking techniques.
after thousands of hours of watching food channels.
Yeah.
I know all the things. All right, off I go. Getting to the kitchen. Annoying.
What's the sigh about? Are we on the right sides?
Oh, let me make sure. I was trying to find this. I was trying to find this scene from the show Pushing Daisies, which is a super Simone show that you would hate. But there was this one episode, and each episode was about like solving some kind of murder mystery. And this one episode featured actually a character, I think a widowed woman named Simone Hunden. So her name was Simone, but she had a dog clicker and she trained dogs. But throughout the episode, she actually ends up training one of it's subconsciously training one of the detectives. So like he like perks up every time he hears the click and he doesn't realize that he's been like brainwashed by Simone and trained by her like a dog. I was like, you should get a dog clicker. We actually have dog clickers sitting around the house. We stopped using them because Professor just gets in line. She's a smart dog. She doesn't need a clicker.
Yeah, she doesn't need a clicker. She does pretty well with all the commands we really need.
Yeah.
Except for get out of the house. Once she's
She
in,
listens.
she's
No, she listens to me now. She knows I'm the alpha. She knows what happens.
Okay. So clearly, I've done a terrible job training my wife because
No,
I'm not.
you're
the
just too
alpha.
nice. You're too nice to Professor. Well, one, you don't give her as much food as I do, and two, you're not as strict when she's a naughty sausage. So, but yeah. I wonder how many couples actually use dog clickers on each other or spray bottles. That would be great.
Oh my god!
To
That
spray
is-
bottle to the face. Did you ever? We had a spray bottle for my cat Pumpkin when I was a kid.
You did.
It worked. Yeah. Just get off of
Should
it.
we do that with the kids instead of bops spray bottles? I bet that'd work pretty well for kids, honestly.
We need to try this. Why have we not tried? I have a hair spray. I'm gonna try this out.
You should try it out. The next time one of the kids like starts whining about something, just walk up and be. Oh my god, they would.
They're gonna act like it's acid. They're gonna act like
They are. No, they are gonna. I promise you, if we develop this as like a parenting technique, when our kids are older and they're writing their memoirs, they're gonna be like, "You don't understand. Spray bottles were the much higher punishment than bops. Bops were a low tier punishment compared to spray bottles. That's when you knew you really messed up."
Yeah, I'm just glad we don't resort to emotional emotional blackmail and cold shouldering and the silent treatment. But see, this is stuff that you have to train out of your wife. This is the stuff that is actually toxic, which is funny, but yeah, I'll let you get into it. I was gonna ask Steve and Minka if they wanted brown rice or white rice with the mapo tofu. Are you gonna be super mad if they say brown rice?
Nope. You can have brown rice, and I'll
I
eat
can
it
always
on-
microwave. I can re-steam white rice for you if that's all right.
Sure. I don't care. Whatever you want it.
Okay, hold on.
I mean, your brown rice is disgusting. It's so healthy.
Uh,
If food's not radical, it doesn't go in my body. That is my health advice for people. That means fruit roll-ups and Capri Sun is what I am made out of.
tonight, would you like brown rice or white rice? Question mark. The one thing we don't really have for tonight to go with the mapo tofu is any form of vegetable, because I've never had vegetables served with mapo tofu. So if you want any veg or salad, now would be a great time to pick it up. Question. Not question mark. Exclamation mark. Oh my God.
Indy, please stop throwing things off your thing. Don't throw that, okay? You're not gonna throw it, right? Thank you, Indy. You already made a very big mess, okay? Hey, Torsten. You're pretty cool.
You look super tired.
Do you like your food?
Yeah, but he doesn't want to.
Titan, what are you watching? Titan?
Huh?
What are you watching?
I'm watching Blaze.
Why do you like Blaze?
But I need more milk.
I'll get you more milk, my princess. Oh, we're out of milk.
Literally in front of her.
Oh, this is your more milk, you silly one. There's milk here.
That's in this milk cup.